Welcome back to another Movie Sandy. Today I actually got the chance to talk to director Christopher Sheffield. He gave me a chance to watch his new short film that he just put on YouTube called Ghost of John, which is really good. You should go check it out. And here's the interview. Today we are here with director Christopher Sheffield. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good. What's up, guys?
What's up? So you were nice enough to show me the little cut of Ghost of John. So before you released it, which it already came out, right?
No, it comes out, I think, in like something like 30 hours from now.
30 hours.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to release on Saturday at around 6 because I wanted to release when the sun was down. So,
see, my days are all messed up. I thought it was Saturday today, so that's why. Cool. So, dude, I know I've actually worked with you on Road to Revenge, so that was awesome. Then I got to be an extra, and then thankfully my name was in the credits, but whatever. So, what was the difference between making Ghost of John to making Bite the Ground, Split Lip, and all that?
So whenever you make a film, films require a team. You always have to have a team, even if it's a small one. You need to have somebody that's representing the other departments, because it's to achieve a certain scale of production. It's really hard to kind of handle all of that by yourself. And then obviously you have a cast of actors, because only a psychopath would be in their own movie. But with Ghost of John, there was just no barrier to production. So the only barrier to production was, will I schedule the time? Will I hold that schedule? And then will I get off my ass and actually do the thing when I said I'm going to do the thing? Which is fine. I can do that. So, but yeah, it was last year I was able to do 2 Halloween shorts during October, and those both came out really good. It was just a really gratifying experience to make a horror film in horror season. Yeah, to make it and release it all kind of in the same month. So I really wanted to do that again this year, but I had a lot of projects that were sort of spilling over from the previous month, a lot of editing to do, and then a bunch of my friends were kind of in the same boat where things were still very busy. Post-COVID, things have just been very everybody's rushing to get projects done. So people didn't really have as much free time as they did last year. So I didn't want to lose the momentum. I wanted to still be able to put out a horror short so I can make these kind of an annual thing. So I kind of got the wild idea of what if I just did it all myself like I did back in college, see if that would still work.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to bring up. So how did it feel to feel going back to college and doing it all by yourself? Because there was one shot that I really, really loved in this movie. And I know it was hard for you because I was oh, that must have been, so it was when you close the microwave and then you go, and then I know you ran back to the camera and then you focus in on the coffee mug and then you have to go do the coffee mug. Yeah. I was dude, I love that shot right there. Just because I know what you were going through because you were by yourself, and I was that's badass.
Yeah. Yeah, that took 7 fucking tries. It was hard to because I'm so used to if I'm operating my hands stay on the camera always. Yeah. So there's always this sense of kind of muscular control. If you're gonna make an adjustment, this hand's over here holding the camera steady. But to have to come back and reassume the camera, it was really hard to do that without making the camera jiggle when you kind of first touched it. So yeah, it took me a minute.
So yeah, right away, I mean, I love that shot just because I was that's sick. Because I know what went into it. I feel if other people saw it, they'd be oh, that was cool. But no, for me, I was oh, that must have been hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was trying as much as I could in that intro to use as much movement as possible, with these little inserts. And where I couldn't maybe do movement, do the movement kind of with edits for all these little things, because I know that it would be the natural case for something like this would be to kind of get stuck with a bunch of locked off camera angles where things felt very dreary and slow because you didn't have somebody that could just push the camera in on you as a dolly. So I was all right, if I'm able to pan to something and then do something, one of the hardest ones was the microwave, just doing the button. Because I had one hand on the camera tilting up and the other hand had to land and turn it to a certain number. Oh, okay. I was getting in my head every time I would overcrank it, I'd be everybody's gonna know that popcorn will fucking die. It has to be the perfect number. So
your house is gonna smell like popcorn for a week now.
Yeah, a bad theater in here. It's great.
That's hilarious. No, so I guess what was the inspiration behind the story? Was it just a random thought, or because I feel the monster design in this, which is not a monster, but I don't know what you were going for, monster, serial killer, but it was just really interesting.
Did you, so you heard the song at the end credits?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a real song. when I was in
Oh,
when I was a kid in Texas in elementary school, I lived there for a couple of years. And in elementary school, around Halloween time, we would all like sing in the like the, I don't know what you would call it, like chorus class or whatever. Like we would sing this little nursery rhyme, and it was Ghost of John. And it was, I would always like, I've had like a kind of a crazy imagination my whole life, and I would always like just go into this like horrorscape in my mind whenever we sang it, because it's just a bunch of kids singing these lyrics, which are like, have you seen the ghost of John? I don't remember the second verse, the second line, but then it was like with no skin on, like wouldn't it be chilly with no skin on? So it's like this it's supposed to be kind of cute, but ends up being just like very creepy.
yeah, I'm just like,
Like, yeah, so like, yeah, like I just always imagine like this skinless figure like stalking its way through the hallways of the school, you know. So that always kind of stuck with me from like childhood. So this is the first time I was like, I'm gonna make something about that.
yeah. And then, well, how long did that makeup take for you? Did you put it on by yourself or did you have help?
No, I did that by myself.
Really?
Yeah, when I first got into doing films, I had a buddy of mine named Garrett, and if you've seen my film Run for Your Life, the character of Gator and the film The Kid with the Baseball Bat is actually based off of my buddy Garrett.
Oh, okay.
I even called him at one point while I was writing it, and I was like, "Hey, if I said this to you, what would you say?" And I just like wrote his answer in the script, because he's a really really distinct kind of individual. Like I've never met anybody like him, but he introduced me to indie film. And at the time when we were young and in like in you know kind of mid high school years, he wanted to be the director and I wanted to do special makeup effects. So I was like in my bathroom with like cheap latex and toilet paper and like watercolor paints and stuff, just like figuring out these different ways to like layer toilet paper on and then like paint it down so that it would become like mangled flesh. So it was like I kind of had like no actual experience being taught special effects, was just fucking around a bunch. And then I did that again in college on like, you know, when I was in film school and days that I would be like kind of at home alone, bored or whatever. I'd be like, oh, maybe just go turn myself into a zombie. So this was the first time I've done it in a very long time. So it was cool that like the kind of the memory of how to do everything still stuck. But yeah, it was the same thing. It was just extremely basic materials and just a knowledge of like the best way to sort of like light and shoot those to, which is like kind of what I bring like in this new version of my life, is like I'm focused more on like cameras and lighting than special effects. So I know like if I do this and it looks like just okay, like can I light it to make it look more than okay? And then later on, can I go in and post and can I like make the reds like creepier and can I like make the eyes darker, you know, like things like that. So yeah, I'm absolute rubbish at like After Effects and stuff, but I can do really like subtle things with color that I think are, it's similar to After Effects and that it really affects what you're looking at.
Because that was green screen, right? When it was your shoulder and then it was the John right there.
Yeah. When it was the ghost actually like standing up in the backgrounds. Yeah, that was I shot the foreground plate because I shot this over the course of 3 nights. So
Okay.
the foreground plate I shot on the first night, and that was because I wanted to get all the performance stuff out of the way. So I had the story was all shot, and then it was just like, okay, what do I need to fill in the holes to finish this thing?
Interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah. So the I did that like that whole reaction shot where like I set the camera up, start and I turn and then react and then look. And there was I did a bunch of different versions because I kept getting mixed up like what shoulder I should look over with my eyes.
Yeah.
And then also like I felt for actors because I had a really wide angle lens on that to be able to get like very close to me and still read like my expression and focus and still read the background. So every time I like swept my eyes across the camera, I felt like I was looking into the lens. And so, like a bunch of those takes were unusable because I kept doing like so.
It's just like right there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like right in front of me. Yeah, and I was like, "Fuck, actors are great, man." But yeah, so I did that, and I just left the background empty, and then I stepped out of the frame and got my background plate, which is just like where you shoot without any elements in there in case like you need to move something around so that you're not like kind of messing with that. So I shot both of those things, and then a couple nights later, I did the actual green screen plate. Because to be honest, when I was shooting the previous stuff, I didn't actually know what I was gonna do. Like I had an idea, like I knew that it was gonna be one shot, and I knew that the creature was gonna show up in the background, the ghost, and that I was gonna react the whole time it was getting closer to me, but I didn't know what that was gonna look like if that was gonna be me with the skinless makeup, if I was gonna do just like a creepy like from behind the head thing, or you know, like was I gonna like walk out and like maybe be staring at the wall instead of looking at him and then slowly turn. So I had all these ideas. I just didn't know which one I was gonna use. But I ended up being like the most efficient way for me to do it and not showcase how bad I am at visual effects was the version of the ghost just sort of like rising up with the kind of dead person's like cover, like the modesty
Got
cover.
it.
Yeah. And it was cool because I shot that plate I shot at 12 frames per second and everything else was at 24. So that's what sort of makes that like really crazy, like sharp.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like you shoot like half the frames. So the image is just sort of like naturally sort of like sped up. So
Huh.
yeah,
That's
makes it.
interesting. Now that you tell me and I'm playing it in my head, I'm like, that makes more sense. Because yeah, it looked creepy. And how was it you being under the covers?
It sucked because you're shooting 12 frames per second. When you finish and you play the video back, it's like half as long as you think it should be. So I saw it, but I didn't do any of the actual like math in my head. I was just like, all right, you just got to do this for a minute. Like if you wanted it to be an uncut shot. So I just was like underneath this like blanket, just doing like every contortion move that I could and trying to not repeat myself too much. For like I counted out like a minute and 30 seconds just to make sure that I was fully covered for the shot. So
I always think it's so funny. Like when I make videos, like, and I'm doing all of these things, and I'm like, is this gonna make any sense at all? And like, and then like when you're editing, you're like, oh, okay, like there you go, it did make
yeah,
sense. So,
like
was there any sort of time?
after every take, I'd be like in the middle of performance, like, all right, let's see if that sucked. And I'll just get up and go look at it. Like it was actually really hard to like separate those two brains. And like I can see why a lot of actors get into projects wanting to direct themselves. And then halfway through, they're like, hey, can we bring an acting coach in here to watch this? Because I don't fucking know if I'm doing this right.
Was this your first time like acting in one of your things, or have you done it before?
No, I used to act when I was in college and when I was in high school, whatever, making these things in my apartment. I was acting in them. But I mean, it was, just kind of like a kid messing around. So I wouldn't say I had any like chops. I've only acted in one. I mean, I've done cameos in most of my films, but I only acted in one like actual production. It was like a web series. It was like first time I ever came to LA was to meet somebody who was creating that, and I got cast in it, and I did some rehearsals. We shot like a couple episodes, and then the project just kept going through changes and stuff. So I never ended up seeing any of the footage, but it was fun. It was a big cast of friends, so it was like the experience was good enough that I didn't really care about the final edit. It was a good time. But I haven't done any sort of like professional acting since that. Pretty much, it was just like I did like I was in the early of Split Lip. I was the guy who was trying to shoot her through the window and gets beat to death by my buddy Chris, who was he played the horror host in this one.
Got it.
Yeah, and then in the one that's not, I don't have a poster up on my wall yet because it's not done yet, but I play a cannibal that gets shot in the face in one of the horror westerns. There's been no like marketing material reached for that.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. You won't miss me. It's a bunch of that one was really fun to do because I had to take a stunt fall in the snow, and I was carrying this like little bone axe and it like cut my finger open, and like we had just started filming, so I was just like, I'm just gonna bleed, it's fine, like we got stuff to do today, so
We got it. Let's go.
yeah, like it's we need to work.
So I guess now, would you rather have a big production, or do you like doing these small like by yourself movies or short films?
By myself, that's kind of like a once maybe every year, once every now and then thing, like could be fun. The movies the size of the ones that like in these posters back here, those are all pretty small productions, and then obviously there are like bigger ones that I have my sights set on, like larger scale and everything. I think that no matter where I am in my career, like no matter what I'm working on, if it's studio projects or whatever, I'm probably still going to make smaller projects in between, because it's just so much fun. I like a lot of whenever you're making a film, there's a lot of process in between you and the actual filmmaking part. But like at the end of the day, the funnest part always just comes down to director, camera, actors, and whatever you can do to get it down to just that element. Like that's where you feel that like artistic gratification. That's where you feel like, you get through a scene and you're watching it through your monitor, you're watching the actor do their thing, or like in some cases when I'm operating for myself, and like you just kind of like the camera movement is nailed and the actor's performance is nailed. There's just a sort of like a special like kismet in that moment that like feels amazing. And I think when you get to like bigger and bigger and bigger projects, just more things become involved. It becomes a bunch of monitors lined up and a bunch of people sitting there, a bunch of producers behind them, and like things become more separated from the art. And I think that the goal in my career will always be to keep it as narrow as possible, so I can stay as close to that moment as possible, no matter what the size of the production is. And I think then I will always be able to know that I'm making the movie that I want to make. Whether that ends up being a good or bad movie is on me, but I make the one that I tried to make, that I set out to make. So
That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, like, I really like this movie. I thought it was really, I love the beginning because it felt like really like 80s vibe.
yeah,
Like you were doing the shot, you were making the popcorn. I was hoping you were gonna put the M&Ms in the popcorn. I was like, oh, that looks so good. You just made the food look so good. And then like, yeah, then you do, I like how you're super excited to see the horror movie festival or the America.
yeah.
And then you're just like, cuts to the breaking news. I'm like, ooh, what's happening?
Mhm. Yeah,
But
that's very, very much my own life. I'm the same way. I'm very excited to just go like sit down and watch a bunch of movies in a row. So I was like, yeah, I can play this character.
yeah, that's funny. So I don't know. I just really liked it. I mean, I'm super excited that we even got to talk about this because, I mean, I think it's interesting to see because I saw Road to Revenge and then you do this, and then I'm excited to see Bite the Ground is next, though, right?
Yeah. Bite the Ground. That guy right there is it's done. The movie's done. We had a premiere. The premiere was fantastic. It was like, I think it was just like the perfect crowd because it's a very fun. It's like an action comedy adventure, similar to a vibe of something like The Mummy or whatever with like less dead people in it. So it's like there's really good action. Like everybody that had kind of like a fight scene or a shootout scene or something really showed up to make it cool. But it's also very accessible and fun. But yeah, so that one I think it'll be really good when it finally gets out there. It's in the distribution process right now, which is basically where you try to figure out who is going to buy your movie, and then if that person buys it, what they're going to do with it, because there's so many streaming platforms out right now that like you want to make sure that they take the movie and they do the right thing with it. It gets on the right platform in front of the right audience, because a good movie could easily be buried if it goes in the wrong direction. So it's a much more like nuanced process, I think, than maybe it had been in the past, where you could just be like, yeah, there's like 4 streaming platforms. You're gonna get on one of those, and now there's like 100,000 of them. So you just have to go to like film market festivals and stuff and talk to a bunch of different people and try to figure out what the best deal is, not only for the budget to be remade or whatever, but also just for the movie to be seen in general. So it's in that process right now. But when it gets through that boring shit, I'll be able to bring it to everybody and I'll blast it everywhere, all over social media. Because I'm legitimately excited for people to see that. I think it's a movie that you don't have to be a Western fan to enjoy. So I'm hoping that that's the case when it gets in front of an audience.
Yeah, well, so I've been putting a lot of people on, like people, I talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I love Westerns. I'm like, whoa, you should watch Road to Revenge. It's pretty good. And I was pretty surprised when I watched it because of course I was there for like the fight scene, for the saloon scene, but I wasn't there the day before or the day after when you guys actually did all the actual gunfighting scene.
Oh, the big shootout.
Yeah, the big shoot, dude. I was super surprised. I was like, wow, like the action was great. Like you guys actually, I don't know, was it all blanks?
Yeah,
it was no like special effects though, right?
Yeah, I didn't do any post special effects on gunshots in that movie. I didn't have to, and it'd be really tough to, honestly, with Western guns, because they like the blanks that we're also used to seeing kind of in films like throughout the history of film is very smoky. So like that, that not only like affects what comes out of the gun, but it affects the light, and then it washes over the actors in the scene. So it'd be really tough to do that digitally and make it believable. I think it would just look like shit. So, but there's something about doing like a big sort of like bombastic like shootout scene where the actors can feel and see the boom, and the camera can feel and see the boom. And I think that really lends itself to sort of like the legitimacy of the action. Because we were doing one of the shots that we had to do that was challenging in that fight scene was when Kellen's character first starts firing on, like when they're surrounded, he first starts unloading. The first 2 people he shoot both have to take kind of big falls. One of them flies back, and one of them is actually jerked back with a rope hidden by the stunt guys around the corner. So like their timing had to be perfect. And there's like no better way to like nail that timing than when that gun is just exploding a sound out,
Yeah. No, like I said, I was really surprised because I wasn't there for that. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, and I compare it to just like really high budget movies compared to what you said that this was like a lower budget, but it was still like
Budget, yeah.
it seemed like a really like super high budget movie, and that's what I loved about it too.
That's the best compliment ever. Thank you.
And then, well, like, and then I go back to this to Ghost of John, where the camera angles, the lighting, and it actually felt like a bigger budget movie. And I'm guessing you didn't really spend too much money on this short film.
No, I spent like
or latex.
yeah, like $15 on latex and stuff and everything else.
And I think that's what makes like the big difference between just getting an iPhone, getting a camera, and then you comparing getting your actual shots, the lighting, the sound effects, because I saw when you were walking, you put little sound effects, and then like even did you do ADR?
Yeah, I did. So I didn't record any sound while I was shooting it because I wanted to just kind of be able to stay light on my feet, not have it like one more thing to worry about, because I probably would have just like it would have just gone by the wayside. It would have probably messed it up anyway. Do you ever follow a director named David Sandberg?
No. Oh, yeah. He did Lights Out and
Creation, I think it was, and then he did the Shazam films.
Yes.
Phenomenal. He's a great person to follow on YouTube, and he had made a bunch of like little horror shorts at home with his wife Lota, and they're so good. He's so like stupid talented, and so I've watched a bunch.
They're so scary for being so short. They're like he's watching it the whole time.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I know how he feels kind of being on the inside of your own projects. You're like, yeah, I guess it's okay, but like his work is legitimately incredible. He's so many steps above me, and I love watching his stuff. But he's also very open about his process, how he makes the films, what he does with them. So he was the first person that I had heard talk about not because of being a one-man band or whatever, just not doing sound during production. Because for me, I had always like, even if you look at like behind the scenes photos of like last year's Halloween shorts, I'm like, I've got headphones and like a mic pack like all strapped to me because I'm like running sound while I'm like filming them. And he was the first person that was like, yeah, don't do that. I mean, unless you've got extensive dialogue, like it's more, you have more control over the scary if you control the sound from like zero, which like made perfect sense to me. Like if you start from zero, then the only sounds that they hear are the ones you want them to hear. So like I'll put in the ambience, I'll put in distant street sounds and crickets so that you feel like we're in a real room. But then like if I want you to hear that footfall, then I can do that without competing with anything else. Like that's the loudest sound of the room is my foot touching the ground. So it ended up being a really smart decision for this one, because when I don't have that much and like you're kind of working on a less is more thing, there's a lot of elements in filmmaking that make horror happen before the horror happens. So like what angle you choose, what you show versus what you don't show. Like if you're hearing a scary sound and all you see is the actor's close up reacting, that's worse than if you see the thing in the same frame to start. Like you've got to build them up and be like, what the fuck are we listening to? Because you want to like make people kind of trapped in the moment. So like that, like your camera choice and your sound choice basically will do the job before you ever get to having to show off your special effects or whatever the creatures.
Yeah. That's badass, man. Yeah, because I mean, I love just small details and just in anything, and then just your small details that you put into this. I was like, this is great. I'm really excited that I gotta watch it before anybody else. So this will be out though. This will be out after.
It'll be out by tomorrow. You're the only press that got the screener early. So.
Yes, thankfully. And then just a little quick shout out. So you are actually going to be at the Split Lip, the Action Film Festival.
It's the Los Angeles Action Film Fest. Okay. Yeah, and it's for this film called Welcome to the Sting that I did, a short film that we did sort of coming out of COVID. I think it's a little over a year old now when we shot that, and it's just been like kind of running through all the action festivals and doing really good. So I think it's actually that one is, so it's going to play at the LA Action Film Fest in November, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be a small venue, but the fact that they have like 4 features and like a ton of short films, so like 8 days worth of programming is insane. Like that's a pretty big festival. So that's going to be really fun. I think that there's just going to be a good energy around all that. But it's actually coming close to the end of its like festival career, because it's been going through festivals for like a little over a year, which is usually around the time that like I've kind of hit a lot of the action ones. So I'm feeling like I'm ready to kind of cap that one off with the laurels that it has and just release it on YouTube and then just kind of move on to the next action project for fun. So ideally, if folks listening in follow the YouTube channel, you're probably going to get like a cool action short film at the start of next year.
You have released it though, right? Or did you
That
release?
one, when I first put it out, I put it out onto YouTube for like a
Okay.
week.
Okay.
So
I was like,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
I watched it.
yeah,
How
yeah.
did I watch it then?
Everything I do. Yeah, I wanted it to to kind of gain a little bit of like kind of a mini following, like just to get like enough fans or people who have seen it to like, so that when I do finally release it, it doesn't start from zero on YouTube. Like it'll have, you know, like already like comments and stuff. But then I made it private on YouTube and then started submitting it to festivals.
Okay.
And honestly, because we didn't know like if it was good or not. Like, you know, we did it for fun. Myself and Billy, who was the fight coordinator, and he was also the dude in the movie that beats the shit out of both the other guys. He's incredible. And we did it just for fun between the two of us. Like we both like co-paid for everything. And once it came out the way that it did, and we got the reception that it did when we released it, we were like, okay, well, like maybe we should put this in festivals. Like if this is cool enough, then maybe the action filmmakers in LA should check it out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it ended up doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna be like, is there a sequel? Is there anything gonna happen? Because you kind of left that open-ended, and I'm just like,
Bro, there is an entire show written for it. I have a pilot.
really?
Yeah, and I have a whole I have like a whole kind of like show Bible like pitch breakdown made for it, for like what the rest of the season would be, what the next season would be. Yeah, that concept
Damn.
blew up in my head, and I created all this stuff around it. I've been able to send it to I think only like 2 or 3 people. One of which seemed very interested in maybe talking about developing it. But with stuff like that, and especially in a city like this, like that's kind of like a dime a dozen experience. Like you end up sending your pitch materials to a lot of people, you end up pitching for a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will go through now. But it also doesn't mean that it won't go through, because like I might get a call in fucking like 6 months to be like, hey, like, you know, we need an action thing for the streaming thing. I talked to you, you know, a year ago. Like, you still have that thing? So yeah, it's weird like that when it comes to pitching projects. But all that to say, yes, the greater story has been written. Everybody that is in the film would still be on board, with maybe the addition of 1 or 2, ideally, like, you know, kind of name talent, just to kind of spruce the project up a little bit. So that would be a really fun one to make. I got one offer to turn it into a feature instead of a show, but I felt like that was kind of like disingenuous to the concepts, because it just sort of lent itself to like longer form. I don't know if it would be. Yeah, I think if it was a movie, it would just be like a little, you'd have to compress it to the point that it was a little corny. It'd be like the things would be solved a little too quickly. But I think like if you're doing like a long form, somebody being stuck in, like 2 people being stuck in an undercover situation, that's very deadly. I think you could get a lot more mileage out of that as a show. So that's ideally what I would do with that one.
That's badass, and I do understand, because I feel like I've heard of movies being turned into shows, or vice versa, shows being turned into movies, and then I'm just like, why did that just wrap up so quickly?
Yeah,
I feel like that's a smarter choice, especially if you already have season 2 and like the whole season planned out. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I've got like a big like spreadsheet of like all the characters and like how they connect to each other and shit. And I'm like, this would be a terrible movie. It'd be so, you'd just be introducing people for an hour and 30 minutes, and that would end. So
you took my wife. There's my wife.
Just fight scene. Yeah.
So just one last question. I guess this is
Yeah.
just more for me and for actors, just in general. What do you as a director look for in an actor? Or what advice would you give to actors?
I think that there's a lot of different things depending on kind of what you're sort of like, what specifics you're talking about. But like just as a director looking at actors, it's really, really cool to to like when you meet somebody, when you work with somebody, and you get the sense right away that they are capable of elevating your project, and elevating the material in your project, because they simultaneously understand what you want to do, that's a case by case thing. That's not like I'm not digging at somebody for not understanding. It's just sometimes material resonates and sometimes it doesn't. So if they understand what you want to do, but then they also have their own sense of reality that they want to bring to it, that's always really exciting. Like I did a piece recently called Miss Teen USA. That's a drama piece. I'm really, really proud of it. Very happy with it. And it's almost done. It's in music right now. And hopefully we'll be able to do festivals this year with it. But when I met with the 2 actors who I'm friends with to like sit down and talk about the piece, we were supposed to be rehearsing, but we didn't even read the script for like an hour. For like an hour, we just sat there and talked about our families and just talked about, family dynamics and that kind of thing. And so it was through that, discussion of like kind of like life and humanity that I was like, okay, these guys are going to bring a whole nother level to this project beyond what I wrote. So it's that ability to sort of read what's on the page and then bring yourself to it in a way that you think that you, like me as a director, watching them perform it or watching them read it or having a discussion, I just know that they are going to elevate the product, and that when we're on set, it's not just going to be me telling you what to do and then you doing it. It's going to be me asking you what you think about the scene and you bringing all these ideas and us talking and being like, okay, I like where that is. That one feels like it moves in the wrong direction, but this is perfect. Let's do this. And then, so through that process, you kind of have an actor that takes ownership over a character, and is able to, like I said, just bring more life to it. And yeah, you could leave the camera on them at the end of the take and they don't break and go, oh my God, I don't like that one. Like you just, if you don't call a cut, they just stay living in the moment. It's really special kind of when you get to work with somebody like that.
Awesome. And take constructive criticism, I'm pretty sure, because
but also like an actor like that like should be able to give the director constructive criticism. Like I've been constructively criticized by people that I consider to be fantastic actors, where they, I might make a direction and they might be like, explain that. And if I don't have an explanation, then I'm like, oh, you're right, I don't have an explanation, do what feels right. But if I do, then it turns into a discussion and it's really nice. But you have to be, it's filmmaking is a team sport. I know I made this one like by myself mostly, and it was like kind of fun. But if you're going to make something that's like elevated and that really, really, really is going to resonate with the widest audience possible, then you have to intake opinions from other artists, because you're not making this movie for your reflection. You're making it for an audience. And so you need other people's thoughts and feelings in to really make it something special. So I mean, even to other directors, like be open to your actors, let them talk, let them come up with ideas, and don't just try to dominate the set because you want to be like the big person on set or whatever. Like let them bring what they do for a living to your project, and everybody will have a better film because of it.
Awesome. That's great advice for just overall like filmmakers too. That's great. Well, thank you very much, Christopher Sheffield. Do you have anything to plug, anything to say, anything you want to throw out there?
I think right now the only thing that's like going public right away is Ghost of John. So check that out, share with your friends if you like it. It's going to go just before Halloween, so there's a couple of days worth of like kind of shares and stuff that people can get it out there. And then like I said, Welcome to the Sting should be coming to my YouTube channel soon. And other than that, keep your eyes out for Bite the Ground, because when that one hits, I think it's going to be really good.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on to Movies with Andy. And this is awesome. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, happy to be here.